Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our business meeting for January. We'd like to welcome you all here. We see lots of familiar faces and a couple of new faces. We welcome you to our school board meetings. We have one new face in particular that I would like to introduce to everyone, and I would ask that you give her lots of leeway. Tonight is her first night. We have a new clerk with us tonight. Her name is Ms. Tijuana Jackson, and we welcome her. Mr. Mitchell, would you like to do the introduction?
Of course. Good evening. We request that all cell phones and pagers be turned to vibrate or turned off during the course of this meeting. Thank you. It has become a tradition to honor our nation at each of our board meetings by presenting the colors and reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. The colors tonight are being presented by the National Junior ROTC Color Guard from Granby High School under the direction of Chief Warrant Officer Jerome Ferret. Please rise and remain standing for the presentation of colors and the reciting of the Pledge of Allegiance. The Pledge of Allegiance will be led by students from Southside STEM Academy at Camp Estella. We will now have our presentation of colors.
Color guard, halt! Order, arms! Ready, cut! Left, pace! Present! Colors! Ready, cut!
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order! Colors! Ready, cut! Right. Pace. Port. Arms. Forward. Arch.
You may be seated.
Thank you very much. Dr. Boone, Superintendent's Report.
Good evening, Dr. Gabriel, members of the board, ladies and gentlemen. Our Superintendent's Report tonight is like those in the past where we have an opportunity to showcase and highlight activities and happenings within Norfolk Public Schools. I always express appreciation to our communications department and particularly our Channel 47 staff who monthly capture the activities and the great things that are going on in the district and put together the video for us to present. So I'd like to share this month's Superintendent's Report.
Students from each of Norfolk's 5 high schools met with Superintendent Dr. Melinda Boone at Granby High School as members of her Student Advisory Council. During these monthly meetings, these students have the opportunity to let the superintendent know firsthand about issues that affect them and their peers on a daily basis. These students spent time talking with each other and with Dr. Boone about bullying, attendance, and relationships with teachers. They're hoping to find solutions together to improve every student's experience in Norfolk Public Schools.
We spend a lot of time as adults
thinking and planning about education and not enough time getting the voices of the students who we are here to serve each and every day. It's one of my best days of each month, the time that we hear, and to hear what's on their minds, what's working well in the school district, what's working well in their schools for them, and what are the areas we need to address.
She's very relatable to us. She understands us very well. She also knows what it is to be a student because she once was a student. So it's like she understands from like a teacher perspective and a student perspective. I feel good to be part of this because it's got me a long way so far. It taught me more than what I knew before, actually.
Being able to have this impact is a big deal for me because I've always wanted to help out the Area 5 schools because there are a lot of issues that need to be touched on, but they haven't been touched on as much as they need to be. So it's a big deal for me.
This is my second group that I've had, and I tell you, they have started off really fast. They are so deep in their thinking, and they are so concerned about gaps that they perceive that impact students being successful. The one thing I've taken away from working with this group is that they care about all of their peers, and they want everyone to be successful.
Seniors in Maury High School's Medical and Health Specialties program were honored at the 10th annual White Shirt ceremony. 40 students were recognized for their near completion of this program in front of family and friends.
The White Shirt ceremony, I feel like even though we're not there yet with medical school, it really is like a symbol, like, wow, I'm really interested in medicine and I'm putting my foot towards the right step, you know?
I think the medical program here at Maury is amazing. I've had so many opportunities that I previously wouldn't have been able to have, such as going to the cadaver lab or meeting and shadowing real medical students. I think the White Shirt, it shows that we've completed something great and we've been awarded with something that's just so amazing. And it's kind of sad to think that we're leaving now, but it's also awesome that we're being able to do this.
Not only were these scholars commended for the work they did in the classroom, they were also lauded for their extensive community service work.
I help with VITS with Maury. I represent Maury sometimes with talking. I've done races and things in the community. I think community service is really important for us as human beings because it allows us to get to know one another, allows us to be involved in our community, allows us to build it up, and I think that's a great thing.
Lake Taylor High School held a college and career fair for students, primarily their freshmen, that promoted the school's theme, Read Today, Career Tomorrow. 300 freshmen got to meet with over 30 vendors from various post-secondary options, such as the Sheriff's Department, trade schools, Norfolk Fire and Rescue, and the military. This college and career fair was designed to get younger students thinking about careers earlier in their high school years.
We're just basically going around looking at different careers or colleges that we think we might want to go into and getting a little information about them. I think it's a good use of information so that they know what to expect if you go out and you want to go into that college, and you already know what to expect and what you need to that college or the job that you want to go into.
For me, in the NJRTG program, I mostly look at the military and see where they had opportunities for me. And I just like the fact that I can go around and see many more opportunities I have here, as in college or scholarships. So I really like this career fair, and it's really good for me.
For the 5th year in a row, the local chapters of the International Longshoremen's Association 1248 and 970 donated brand new bikes to students in Norfolk Public Schools during their Make a Kid Smile for Christmas bike drive. What started at a single school, Richard Bowling Elementary, in 2014, has grown to 7 schools this year. Each school received 25 new bikes, totaling 175 in all. Norfolk Botanical Garden chose former Young Scholars teacher Elizabeth McLean and 14 students who were part of the 2003 to 2005 Young Scholars Community Problem Solving Team as the recipients of their 2018 Groundbreakers Award. Ms. McLean and her students assisted the Botanical Garden staff in researching the Works Progress Administration workers who broke ground for the original garden. A bald cypress tree was planted at Rosemont in recognition of their hard work, and current Young Scholars planted the first roots of the tree into the ground. Tanners Creek Elementary was the first recruiting stop for Sail Nauticus, a free after-school program that teaches middle schoolers how to sail and about marine life and water safety. Following the presentation, Interested students were able to ask a variety of questions about the program and how they can get involved.
Every winter, I come by every elementary school in Norfolk, and we like to get the word out to the 5th grade students about an opportunity that they'll be able to have and join us in their 6th grade year. So it's important to come to the schools because the kids they probably don't know this exists. Maybe some are starting to, but this is just a way to get their eyes open to something a little bit different, and maybe say, just answer some questions.
What I learned is that you can do many stuff in Nauticus. Like you can swim, you can learn facts about animals, and then after you can do fun activities, and you can enjoy yourself right after school. So I think that Nauticus would be the right place for me to go after school.
Well, I would consider being a part of this program because I want to learn how to sail boats, because maybe later on I want to be on the ocean and I just want to start boating. I learned that sailing a boat is actually really important in life, and later on it might be useful.
To learn more about Sail Nauticus or to apply to the program, visit their website at sailnauticus.org. For more news stories and other information about Norfolk Public Schools, watch NPS Now on WNPS-TV 47 or the NPS website.
I think what we see in this month's report is from the classroom to the enrichment to the careers, and that's our pathway of what we're trying to accomplish with all of our students. So thank you for your attention to the Superintendent's Report.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Boone. And now we will turn our attention to the Clerk's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. While I have several recognitions this month, I'd like to yield to Ms. Campson to introduce the first proclamation.
Thank you. Principals are like ship captains. Like ship captains who are totally responsible for their ships, principals are totally responsible for their schools. They must be physically present every day. Both must ensure that the ship, or the school, is functioning smoothly, that the crew is high performing, and most important, that everyone is safe. Although they have staff to assist, ultimately it is the captain or the principal who, as they should be, are the ones that are accountable for the success of their vessel. The extra burden that our principals carry is the total responsibility and accountability they have for the safety and education of the children who are placed in their care every single day. Hundreds of children. Every day, principals are responsible for their children, their staff, and their building. It is hard work. Just because our principals make it look easy doesn't mean that it is. School principals work long hours each day, each night, each weekend. In this building, the school board, the superintendent, and her staff set the direction for Norfolk Public Schools. But it is in the schoolhouse where the action really happens. It is our principals and their teaching teams that make learning come alive for our children. The schoolhouse is where great principals are leading the charge to change the lives of our children every day. This is Principal Appreciation Week. Let's celebrate our hardworking principals. Don't let this week go by without saying a special thank you to at least one Norfolk school principal. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Campson. Before I begin reading the proclamation for School Principal Week, I'd like to invite the board members to stand in front of the dais to assist in recognizing our recipients. Virginia School Principals Appreciation Week. Whereas school principals work cooperatively to direct, develop, and inspire all members of the school staff and student body, and to communicate effectively with parents to engage them in the learning process. And whereas principals serve as educational leaders responsible for managing the policies, regulations, and procedures necessary to ensure a safe and effective learning environment for all students in Virginia's public and private schools. And whereas principals and teachers are entrusted with the opportunity and the responsibility for guiding, directing, nurturing, mentoring, and imparting knowledge to our children while they're at school. And whereas principals must work collaboratively with teachers, staff, students, parents, and the community at large to proactively prepare students to be self-reliant and productive citizens. And whereas Virginia School Principal Association Week is an opportunity to recognize the hard work of Virginia school principals and to recognize the importance of principals in ensuring that every child has access to quality education. Now, therefore, I, Ralph S. Northrum, do hereby recognize January 20th through the 26th, 2019, as Virginia School Principals Appreciation Week in our Commonwealth of Virginia, and I call this observance to the attention of all of our citizens. Receiving on behalf of the elementary school principals is Ms. Julie Honeycutt, principal at Willard Elementary School and president of the Elementary School Principals Association. Receiving on behalf of the secondary school principals is Dr. Marjorie Stallers, principal at Booker T. Washington High School and president of the Secondary Principals Association. Career and Technical Education Month. Career and Technical Education, or CTE, is education that directly prepares students for high-wage, high-demand careers. CTE covers many different fields, including healthcare, information technology, advanced manufacturing, hospitality, and management, and many more. Career and Technical Education Month is a public awareness campaign that takes place each February to celebrate the value of CTE and the achievements and accomplishments of CTE programs across the country. I'd like to invite Ms. Goshen to come forward and receive the proclamation. National School Counseling Week. National School Counseling Week 2019. School counselors providing lessons for life will be celebrated from February 4th through the 8th, 2019, to focus public attention on the unique contribution of school counselors within the U.S. school system. National School Counseling Week, sponsored by the ASCA, highlights the tremendous impact school counselors have in helping students achieve school success and plan for a career. I'd like to invite Dr. April Harmon to come forward and receive the proclamation. National PTA Take Your Family to School Week. For over 120 years, National PTA has been encouraging families to get more involved in their child's education. During the week of February 10 through 17, 2019, we will be celebrating PTA's long legacy of family engagement during National PTA's Take Your Family to School Week. I'd like to invite the president of the Norfolk Council PTA, Ms. Stephanie Smith, to come forward and receive the proclamation on behalf of the PTA. At this point, I'd like to invite our student representatives, Jalen Mitchell and Schaefer Shelton, for special recognition.
All right, here we go. Good evening. Last month, the school board passed legislation to make all Norfolk Public Schools tobacco-free campuses. This would not be possible without the effort put forth by Zarian and Zariel Anthony, students at Granby High School. These young ladies partnered with Y Street, an organization to ensure we have a smarter and safer Commonwealth. So at this time, will Zarian and Zariel please join me at the podium? Okay. I'm going to read what it says. It says, we, Jayla Mitchell and Schaefer Shelton, student representatives to the Norfolk Public Schools Board of Education, would like to present the Student Representatives Achievement Award to Zarian and Zariel Anthony for your dedication, engagement, and activism with Y Street in making all Norfolk Public Schools tobacco-free campuses. Presented January 23rd, 2019 by myself, Jayla Mitchell, and Schaefer Shelton.
Thank you.
Along with this certificate, we would like to present you with an official Norfolk Public Schools pin. And on behalf of the school board and all of the students from Norfolk Public Schools, we would like to say thank you.
Thank you.
On the ends, if we can bring the ends in.
We're going to go off script for just a second. Would every principal that is in the room come up to the board, and we're going to do a picture with the principals that are here as well with the proclamations. Oh, they did? Oh. Okay, yeah. Okay.
We gotta bring this in. We gotta.
Shorter people move up, please. Fill in the back.
She loves doing that.
Can I have you go to the other end, though, please, behind Dr. Boone?
Oh, really?
All right,
Get in.
Good? Better?
Come in, Dennis. Couple more to go. That's good. That's it.
Oh, okay.
One more.
So we also have several of our administrators here who are also principals in their former lives. Would you all just please stand and be recognized? We'd like to show our appreciation for you too. All right, okay, we have, okay, all right, and we have one more recognition.
Virginia School Board Association. School Board Appreciation Month. Salute the service of the almost 850 school board members in Virginia in February 2019 during School Board Appreciation Month. The theme, Leading for Success, reflects the top priority of the local school board members as they advocate for public education with local, state, and federal leaders on behalf of all students. The month-long observance is an opportunity for your school division and community to build a stronger understanding of the crucial role school boards assume in a representative democracy. School boards voluntarily tackle the enormous job of governing multi-million-dollar public school divisions while preserving the core of our democratic values. Thank you. Madam Chair, this concludes the clerk's report.
It's going off script a lot tonight. Here we go. This week we are also going to commemorate School Board Clerk Appreciation Week. This actually takes place in February, but we're going to recognize it right now in preparation for that time. The Virginia School Board of Directors has designated the third week in February as the VSBA School Board Clerk Appreciation Week, with a goal of building awareness in the role of school board clerk plays in assisting school board members, superintendents, in our local schools. Please plan now to share your local clerks your appreciation for their work. Recognizing local school board clerks for a job well done takes a concentrated effort on the part of all those that they serve: school board members, superintendents, administrators, school staff, students, and the community. And we know our board is exceptionally special when it comes to that, so we really do appreciate our clerk. And on that note, we have had Mr. Butts graciously step into the role of being our deputy clerk while we have been looking for the perfect candidate. And with that being said, Mr. Butts, we have a small token of appreciation that we'd like to present you with.
Right back. You won't be facing him.
Normally at this time we would have a musical selection. However, many of our students are busy preparing for the Virginia International Tattoo, and so tonight we will not have a musical performance, but we're really happy to be celebrating all of the great accomplishments of the individuals that we were able to honor tonight. We will move on now to citizen comments on the agenda and non-agenda item. When your name is called, please follow these steps. Come forward to the speaker's podium. The podium may be adjusted to suit your height. State your name and whether you have a child in Norfolk Public Schools or if you are employed in the division. State your position and give facts and other relevant data. If you represent a group or organization, ask the others to rise and be recognized. Please give any written statements or supporting material to the clerk for the record. Speakers are limited to a one-time appearance of 3 minutes. When the clerk signals that your time is up, please quickly end your comments and be seated. The school board does not respond to citizen comments at the time that they are given. Ms. Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Tonight we have a total of 9 speakers. The first two, Whitney Davis and Sandra Scheinebarger.
Good evening, Dr. Boone, Dr. Gabriel, and members of the board. My name is Whitney Davis. I have 2 helpers with me tonight. My daughter Maria, who was just in a lovely pilot article about recess, and her friend Ruby. They're both Norfolk Public School students. Tonight, we are going to compress decades of educational research into a few minutes with plastic cups. And we're going to demonstrate how learning and recess go hand in hand. The cups represent lessons taught by a teacher in the classroom setting. The kids represent 2 brains in those classrooms. As we hand out lessons, the brains are dealing with the information pretty well. But we get to a point where we make a shift. While the Ruby brain stays in class, the Maria brain is going to go to recess. Now the Ruby brain is going to get access to learning that the Maria brain doesn't have. But I want to show you something that's really exciting that has happened with the Maria brain during recess. A bunch of complicated neurological processes have taken place, and the end result is that this brain is primed for learning. So when we send these brains back to class and we continue to provide instruction, we can see a marked difference in how the brains are able to handle the information that's coming their way. The research shows that recess and learning are on the same team. Recess is not stealing learning time, it is learning time. And it's paving the way for higher achievement by allowing learning that is more effective and more efficient to take place for all students. I'm here on behalf of the growing membership of More Recess for Virginia's Norfolk to ask you, please recognize that recess is not just a break, but it is learning time well spent, and as such should be prioritized and increased in Norfolk Public Schools. Good evening, Dr. Boone, Dr. Gabriel, Mr. Clanton, and school board members. My name is Sandra Scheinebarger. I am a parent in Virginia Beach. I'm part of a growing group called More Recess for Virginia Beach. I'd like to also add that I attended Mary Calcott Elementary as a child and in preschool Breezy Point Elementary at NOB. Also have strong ties to Norfolk because family living in Norfolk, Roland Park, and family heavily involved in the Scouts and the Willoughby Sailing Racing Team and St. Timothy Lutheran. I'd like to share that in Virginia Beach, first I want to share that several research studies showing a connection between test score improvements, behavior improvements with recess time have been taken very seriously by our state legislators and Governor Northam. A new law was passed last year that allows nearly an hour, 50 minutes of recess to count as instructional time. That means the school day wouldn't have to go longer. The next step to that is to implement the new legislation as a really nice opportunity to take advantage of, to implement that into the localities such as Norfolk and Virginia Beach. I'd like to share that the Virginia Beach School Board has taken several parents very seriously regarding all of these research studies that show the improved behavior, test scores, and learning with increased playtime. The school board there has appointed a committee. It's a recess committee, and it's made up of admin, teachers, and parents. Our first meeting was last month in December and with 10 people, and it was very productive. We have another meeting next week, and that's set up for 30 to 40 people, admin, parents, and teachers. Currently, Virginia Beach has 20 minutes of recess where 15 minutes is attached to PE. PE occurs daily, all 5 days of the school week. I hope Norfolk is able to increase their PE days. If not, that makes increasing recess more important. In Virginia Beach, we're seeking to separate recess from PE by adding 20 to 50 minutes of recess in the morning or at a time separate from PE. Increasing recess increases social and problem-solving skills needed to avoid conflict with authorities and avoid legal troubles. One study taken seriously is from the American Academy of Pediatrics called The Crucial Role of Recess in School. I have copies of the highlights of the study for you. Recess will combat obesity and other mental health issues like depression and anxiety. Another goal of ours in VB is to, enforce the wellness policy. Their policy states that recess should not be removed as punishment. Positive behavior support is the alternative. And thank you for having me. I've got these. Do I just give them to you?
And give their clerks.
Okay.
Next, we have Bree Guerra, followed by Vivian Monroe Hester.
Hi. My comments are going to be a little off the cuff because I believe in this new group. My child is 5. He goes to a wonderful little preschool. Larchmont United Methodist Preschool, and we're about to wade into the kindergarten and learning about Norfolk Public Schools. My husband and I are both ODU graduates. We love the community. I grew up in Virginia Beach, he in York County, but we believe in Norfolk. We've stuck around. We bought 2 homes here. We're renovating one in Larchmont now, and we believe in public schools. We are the product of public schools. So imagine my shock whenever I'm wading into the kindergarten, public schools, when I realized that for almost a 7-hour day, my 5-year-old is only going to get 20 minutes, if that. I know that you all have probably had kids, you're around kids all the time. My 5-year-old is not going to do well, and he is neurotypical. He is a good kid. He is a great kid for his age. And I know that he's not going to be successful in the ways that I think he could without that break. And 20 minutes for a 7-hour day for a 5-year-old, I know the research shows that that's not even close to what they need. And now that there's legislation that allows us to extend our day, I really would hope that Norfolk Public Schools can come out on top with this one, because sometimes they're a little slow. And I love Norfolk Public Schools, but I would really like you to take the research and take what you're allowed to have and act on it quickly, not wait. Don't let Virginia Beach beat you. Don't let Virginia Beach, I feel like I love Norfolk and I want to see it succeed. And right now, I will be signing my son up for a private preschool that will get out at 1:15. It's taught by a master's degree teacher who is wonderful, and they still get 30 minutes a day. And everything says he'll come out ready for first grade. I don't want to have that make that decision for first grade too. I would like him to go to public school in Norfolk, like I did, like my husband did. But we'll do what we have to do. But he's a good kid, and it's just not enough. The kids that aren't neurotypical, I'm sure that they are even worse off and don't cope well. That's all.
Greetings, Madam Chair and Dr. Boone and members of the Norfolk Public School Board. On behalf of the Concerned Citizens, PTA, and Foundation of Booker T. Washington High School, it is my pleasure to present our interested Booker T. Washington grads. Please stand. It is my pleasure to invite you all to the unveiling of the historic highway marker in honor of Booker T. Washington's 102 anniversary. On February 23rd at 11 a.m., we will meet at the school and we will start our presentation there. We will be unveiling our marker and we will have a small program, and we would love for you to be a part of that. That evening at 6 o'clock, we will celebrate with a reception at the Half Moon at Nauticus. Come and join us and be a part of Norfolk's history. Booker T. Washington High School has been a part of Norfolk Public Schools since 1917, and we are very proud of the history that she has. We're here just to say that we love Norfolk Public Schools, we love the history, we love the part that we have played in Norfolk's development. There is no cost for any of the activities. Please come out and join us. Thank you.
Next, we will have Lula Sears Rogers, followed by Cheryl Lacey.
Good evening to you all. Dr. Vivian Monroe Hester just told you about our celebration, but I'd like to pass these out to everyone at the front so that you can have a paper copy and you really won't forget us. My name is Lula Sears Rogers, and I am a member of the Concerned Citizens of Booker T. Washington High School, a 1959 graduate of Booker T. Washington High School, the very same year that the schools closed due to the laws of massive resistance. And for your information, February the 2nd, 2019, will be the 60th year anniversary of the end of massive resistance for Norfolk Public Schools. In the state of Virginia now, we only have 2 historically black high schools left who have stood the test of time. I.C. Norcom in Portsmouth and Booker T. Washington in Norfolk. And I just heard on television that Newport News they're planning to rebuild Huntington High School in 3 years, so I know that the people in Newport News will be very happy about that because Huntington is along with us. We ask that you please do all that you can to keep this historic home to thousands and thousands around the world, a strong, vibrant, bright, attractive school to the students in Norfolk. Whatever the CTE program is and whenever it is to begin, please make it clear to all concerned. Make sure that the many things that need to be put in place and the knowledge and all that has to be done is known to all. We invite you, as Vivian has done, to our great and grand celebration of the installation of the historic marker on Saturday, February 23rd, 2019. Please come and share with us. Finally, for those who are in doubt as to our age, 102 of existence, this comes from the history books, and I put that little flyer on the back. I want everybody else to hear this. It took 21 years from the start of its state-mandated school system for Norfolk to approve high school level classes for African American children. This occurred in 1911 at the John T. West Elementary School when Principal David Gilbert Jaycox petitioned the school board for those classes. He petitioned again, and in 1914, the Virginia State Board of Education approved his request to establish the first accredited African-American high school in Virginia and graduated his first class that year, John T. West High School. John T. West High School was finally renamed Booker T. Washington High School in 1917. That was 102 years ago. Please come to our celebration, and I thank you so very much for your time.
Dr. Boone, Dr. Gabriel, board members, my name is Cheryl Lacey, and I reside at 605 Resch Court in Chesapeake. I'm a proud 21-year teacher in Norfolk Public Schools, and I'm here tonight to address a concern I have about a recent experience with human resources after returning from FMLA. Upon my return, I provided human resources with a return to work paper from my surgeon. It stated that I was returning to work on full duty with the restriction of a knee scooter. Once my office manager sent it, a return email came stating that I needed to leave the premises due to my restriction of the scooter. I immediately called and spoke to Chris Maisel, who was very nice, but explained that I could not stay at school. Now, you have to understand, I love my kids. My surgery was 2 weeks before Christmas break, so that I would only miss those 2 weeks and spend the 2 weeks of Christmas vacation healing. I can't stand to be away from my kids. I told Mr. Maisel that I wanted to stay at work. He said that he needed to send me some paperwork to sign that would allow me to stay at work. The paperwork he sent is in your folder. Please refer to it now. First, he wanted me to sign an ADA request for an accommodation. The problem is that I didn't ask for any accommodation, so why would I sign it? Secondly, the second page of the form said, I'm advising you, which meant me, that I am not able to perform the following essential functions without an accommodation. My job description is also attached, and nowhere does it state a part of my job that I can't perform. The final form was an authorization for any physician that has ever treated me to furnish NPS any and all information and records and reports which pertain to any treatment of any medical condition. Why would anybody sign that? For my FMLA to be approved, my doctor had provided all the medical information FMLA requires. My FMLA was approved. What more would they need? They approved it. Plus, the Americans with Disabilities Act states that medical information must be kept in a separate file. Yet on my paperwork, Mr. Maisel indicates it is to be placed in my personnel file, which is against ADA regulations. Next, please see the document titled the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. On page 2, it clearly states the difference between a serious health condition and an ADA disability. My situation is clearly a serious health condition, yet it has been treated as if it's a disability. Therefore, all paperwork they asked me to sign pertains to someone with a disability. Just today, I received an email from Mr. Maisel. It's attached as the last paper in your packet. It indicates my ADA process has concluded. Dr. Boone, I love my job, and you know I love my students. In a time where teachers are leaving NPS, I was begging to stay. Why would you tell a teacher who wants to come back to school to go home? Please use the paperwork provided to potentially change the request from Human Resources to be compliant with the ADA and EEOC.
Thank you. Next, we'll have Carter Mellon, followed by Vicki Greco.
Good evening, Superintendent Boone and members of the Norfolk School Board. My name is Carter Moline. I am a Norfolk resident and I have a child with an IEP. I am here tonight to talk about special education statistics. The Virginia Department of Education determination letters on local implementation of IDEA listed 36 Virginia school divisions which need assistance in 2018 as determined by a VDOE scoring rubric. Norfolk, as usual, needs assistance with the second worst score in the state at 27 out of 40 possible points. Of the school divisions that need assistance, Norfolk had the lowest compliance score with 15 out of 20 possible points. Norfolk missed the state reading assessment goal by 30 percentage points with a score of 36%. Norfolk missed the state math assessment goal by 26 percentage points with a score of 39%. Norfolk had a graduation rate of 33.81%, which is 20 percentage points below the Virginia average, as well as being below half of any recent national average statistics I have found. Simply put, Norfolk has atrocious special education compliance scores, graduation rates, and assessments for math and reading. Today, I am asking the Norfolk School Board admit, acknowledge, and understand that this level of performance cannot, under any circumstance, be allowed to continue. Norfolk students under IDEA graduate at a lower percentage than Virginia Beach, Chesapeake, Portsmouth, Suffolk, Isle of Wight County, Hampton, Newport News, Poquoson, Williamsburg, James City, York County, and Gloucester, making our city easily the worst special education district in Hampton Roads. Unfortunately, it gets worse. Virginia's state graduation rate was outperformed by 41 other states in the 39th Annual Report to Congress on the implementation of IDEA. Therefore, Norfolk is one of the very worst special education programs and one of the worst special education states in the United States. I need the school board to put a stop to this. I need you to set and implement a standard that is congruent with average national performance. I hope this is clear and self-explanatory. I even brought a Cliff Notes version of it, okay? Here's Norfolk's graduation rate, here's the state, here's the country. If your school is graduating half the people with disabilities as the country, you have a really, really big problem. And you've been hearing about this for years from people like me and others, and nothing's happening. So I have some statistics and data. If I give it to the clerk, will you all read it? All right, thank you.
Good evening, Dr. Boone, Dr. Gabriel, school board and leadership team members, Mr. Mitchell, Ms. Shelton, and fellow stakeholders. My name is Vicki Manuka, Greco. I'm a retired NPS SLP, speech-language pathologist, current volunteer on the Gifted Ed Advisory Committee and the Special Ed Advisory Committee to the school board. As a Navy kid, I was lucky to spend my entire K-12 education in NPS and graduated 33 years ago from Lake Taylor High. More importantly, my husband and I are now the grateful NPS parents of 3 great teens, 2 high schoolers and 1 in middle school. I'd like to talk a little bit about the process of learning along with others in our larger school community about later start times for high schoolers and the subsequent proposed earlier start times for elementary schoolers. Last night I attended a really productive community conversation at Ocean View Elementary and was really thankful to hear more concerns and ideas from parents of elementary school kids, which included having enough time to help feed their students breakfast before sending them off on their way to school, and the idea of kids consistently having a mid-morning break or recess because of an earlier start to their school day. I heard concerns about young students coming home to an empty house, but also heard about the need for more after-school enrichment and tutoring programs at their elementary schools and possibly stronger programming partnerships with enrichment and daycare providers. As a parent of secondary ed students, and I can't even remember when I had to get up to catch the bus to get to Lake Taylor, I was glad to not only hear firsthand about benefits, challenges, and real concerns about those challenges, but that these concerned parents wanted what was right and best for all children. It's refreshing to get out of our bubbles and learn from each other because we all too sadly know as adults that it's easy to have quick and emotional reactions to change and to the folks who want to move our cheese. I'm sorry to not be able to hear firsthand the community discussion that's taking place right now at Norview High, but I hope that the other parents, teachers, staff members, and stakeholders there are benefiting like I did last night in taking part in a community conversation or town hall, if you will, that brought folks together to share ideas and concerns. I want to finally thank the staff and school board members who not only attend each and every community conversation, but really those who attend to and pay attention to what citizens have to hear. I hope many stakeholders take the time to complete the online survey if they haven't done so already. I also hope folks visit VirginiaEducatorsUnited.com to learn more about why I and others in the audience are wearing red and why we are planning this Monday to march on Richmond to demand from our General Assembly leaders fully funded schools. We all know that we can't put the interest of our kids first if we put our schools and teachers last. But we also definitely know that when considering later start times, we can't put kids' educational needs first if we put the conveniences or inconveniences of adults first. Thank you.
Kendra Royster, and followed by Ellen Fitzenreiter.
Good evening, Superintendent Boone, Chairwoman Gabriel, and members of the Norfolk Public School Board. My name is Kendra Royster, and I'm a field organizer with the Norfolk Federation of Teachers. We are here in red tonight to stand in solidarity with public school employees all across Virginia as part of Virginia Educators United. Virginia Educators United is a grassroots coalition of public school teachers and staff, parents, and community members who believe that after 10 years of underfunded public schools in our state, it's time to come together and fight for the funding our students and our community deserves. We know that Norfolk has invested above the required local effort for Virginia public school districts, and so it's crucial that we continue to put pressure on our state legislature to prioritize the education of our state's children and communities. If you visit the Virginia Educators United and the Norfolk Federation of Teachers Facebook pages, you will see that many Norfolk public school employees have joined the fight to win more funding in our schools. On January 28th, educators from all across the state will be meeting in Richmond to march for full and fair funding for Virginia public schools. We will also be joined by American Federation of Teachers President Randy Weingarten and National Education Association President Lily Eskelsen Garcia. Norfolk Public Schools teachers and classified employees are standing strong and standing together to win the funding our schools need to provide a quality education for our students. We are asking you to stand with us on January 28th in Richmond as public school teachers, staff, and leaders from all across the state march to the Capitol. We hope to see you there. Thank you.
My daughter was adopted from China just shy of the age of 10 in May of 2014. The following September, she was registered for 4th grade at W.H. Taylor Elementary. However, her accommodation at the time as an English language learner student was to attend kindergarten for the entire year and receive 30 minutes per week with the ESL specialist. She received her Certificate of Achievement from kindergarten that June at the age of 11. She's the tallest one in the class picture that year. She was skipped the following year to 3rd grade, and again it received ESL services of 30 minutes per week. We hired a private tutor for her at home because she barely spoke English and she was receiving no language accommodations in the classroom and was expected to acquire 3rd grade skills. She had to learn something. There was no plan to make up for content for 1st and 2nd grade. The vice principal at Taylor at the time suggested that we test her to see if she qualified for special education services, and that without testing, they couldn't offer her any. I said it was impossible now. They couldn't test her in Chinese because she didn't speak it anymore. They couldn't test her in English because she barely communicated in English. I was told that until I agreed to have her tested, she would receive no classroom accommodations. The following year, she was placed in 4th grade. We again hired a private tutor. Shui's language was beginning to emerge. We referred at home to her 3rd and 4th grade years as babysitting. However, this was now serious. Shui needed more help than we could provide at home, and almost $4,000 over 2 years of several afternoons a week tutoring. We agreed to have her tested, cautioning everyone at Taylor that the results probably would be awful because she barely spoke English, had a WIDA score of 2, which was barely emerging, and tested she was using standard assessments for native English-speaking children. The result several months later was that the vice principal, Denise Green, pushed to have my daughter categorized as intellectually disabled, which we refused, and which resulted in her not only receiving inadequate support for the following year, but she was continued to be expected to perform at grade level support despite the fact she didn't know first and second grade. I'm running out of time. I'm going to compress. The next 2 years were awful. I reached out downtown. I reached out to Dr. Jacqueline Chavis. I reached out to Learning Support and Stephanie Whitley and Nikita Edwards and Dr. Janice James Mitchell, and they all knew this was happening, and yet we suffered. And it wasn't until I signed that paper that my daughter was intellectually disabled when she is not, and she was moved to a special education self-contained program at Rosemont, skipped another grade to get her out of Taylor, which fortunately 4 months later, she was not retarded anymore because a new team at a new school said that she was specific learning disabled and she should never have been categorized as ID in the first place. So may none of your children have to be declared retarded to get them services. So was that simply the attitude or the training or the education or the skills of the administration in charge of Taylor and the special education at that school? Sorry, I ran out.
Madam Chair, that concludes our citizen comments for tonight.
Thank you very much. We are now going to move for approval of the consent agenda. Of note, there is a slight adjustment to the approval of the consent agenda. We are withdrawing 2 positions from the consent agenda to be voted on separately. So the consent agenda that we will be voting on will include a modified personnel docket, as well as a student support services report, bills and payroll, and use of school facilities report. Can I have a motion on the floor to approve the modified consent agenda, and then we will take a separate motion on the separate issue we will be voting on?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the modified consent agenda.
I second.
Been moved and seconded. Ms. Jackson?
Ms. Bassin?
Aye.
Ms. Campson?
Aye.
Clanton?
Aye.
I'm sorry, Mr. Clanton, I'm sorry. Ms. Smith?
Aye.
Ms. Martin?
Aye.
Mr. Jordan?
Aye.
Dr. Gabriel?
Aye. Thank you very much. Moving on to our the next motion, can I have a motion on the floor to approve the positions A and B for approval?
I move that we approve positions A and B. I second.
Ms. Bassin?
Aye.
Ms. Campson?
As I stated last month, I have a growing concern about the salary gap between administration, central administration, and the schoolhouse. And so, in not voting against a person here, but I'm voting against the inflated salaries being given to central administration staff that are so much higher than what we're getting in the schoolhouse, where our children are being taught by our teachers and our principals who are vastly underpaid. I vote no.
Mr. Clanton?
No.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
While I agree that we do need to look more closely at our the gaps in our pay, I vote yes.
Mr. Jordan?
We've been working with a pay and compensation study that has shown that many of our professionals are off of the correct step. We're into our second phase of trying to adjust that and getting folks on the correct step. We also know as we're dealing with the state budget, trying to continue to address raises and other resources for all of our staff. I think the issue that we're dealing with is an important issue. I like to see us, put it in a work session and talk through it and have an opportunity to share what's been done with the pay and compensation study and be able to address some of these gaps that we are referencing here today, but I vote aye.
Dr. Gabriel?
I completely respect Ms. Campson and Mr. Clanton's position on this vote in particular, and I understand the mindset that she has with the concern and the optics of how the individuals are compensated who are in our buildings versus central administration. And certainly as we go into our budget discussions, this is going to be a critical area of a discussion for the board because we know how important it is. I do support the motion and I vote aye. So the motion has passed. Okay. Next item on the agenda is our monthly financial report. Dr. Boone?
Thank you. While Ms. Ingram comes to the mic, we provide this information monthly to the board. This month we will also have, if you want me to say flow, we also have the quarterly grants report as part of the monthly finance report. So Ms. Ingram.
Good evening, Dr. Gabriel, Mr. Clanton, Dr. Boone, and school board members. I'll be giving briefly the financial report for our sixth financial period, which ended December the 31st, 2018. As of the end of December, we had received $148.4 million, or 45% of our total budget, and that compares to 43.2% for the same time period last fiscal year and 48.7% in fiscal year 2017. On the expenditure side, same time period, we had expended or encumbered a total of $135.4 million, or 41.1% of the total budget, and that compares to 41.6% for same time period last year and 43.4% for fiscal year 2017. And there were no budget transfers, $50,000 or greater for the month of December. And then behind that is another display of the same type of information, just in a different format that shows you revenue sources and expenditure sources with explanations of variances from last school year. Are there any questions?
As I went through, and you know how interested I am in looking at the spend down on these grants, and I see in... Oh, I'm sorry, I thought she called on me.
But we haven't
Sorry.
First, we're doing the December report, and then we take questions on the grants.
Sorry.
If there are no further questions on the financial report, then we'll move to the grants update then.
I'm going to take the motion on the financial report.
Okay, we'll go ahead and do that then. Are there any questions on the monthly financial report before we go to have the vote? So item 6.01, the monthly financial report.
Thank you.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I'm a little slow tonight.
No. I don't want there to be any confusion. So can I have a motion on the floor to approve the monthly financial report as presented?
I move to adopt the monthly financial report as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Ms. Jackson?
Aye.
Ms. Campson?
Aye.
Mr. Clanton?
Aye.
Ms. Smith?
Aye.
Ms. Martin?
Aye.
Mr. Jordan?
Aye.
Dr. Gabriel?
Aye. Now grants.
Okay, what you have before you is a copy of the quarterly grants report that ended December 31st, 2018 as well. And if you have questions about that particular report, I can.
Hampson.
Okay. Let's try again. All right, as I was going down the report, I was looking at the end dates. And so I started with the 2019 end dates and look for low amounts that had already been expended. And I see some that like are only, like the Perkins Career one, right on the front page. That that grant expires 6/30/2019, and only 20% of those funds have been spent. And I noticed that on a number as I went through. You don't need to read them all. What's the plan there to make sure that we don't run to the end of the spend out time and then do some quick spending so we don't get the money clawed back?
Without particular information on any particular grant, and if you want something specific for Carl Perkins, I'll have to defer to Ms. Goshen, but typically it's the timing of expenditures. It's not always they're going to spend the same amount every month until we get to the end of the year, so I'm not sure about the circumstances of the Carl Perkins, but Ms. Goshen, I'm
Well,
sure
I don't
can
want to ask
speak
about
that.
each separate one because, you know.
Right.
But if I may, Madam
Okay.
Chair, a lot of the Perkins grant is about equipment and sometimes support for the various technical clubs and associations. And so their activities happen sometimes later in the year when you get to the state competitions and the equipment that is ordered. We've never experienced a challenge that I'm aware of in terms of taking care of the Perkins. Actually, there is, unlike some other grants, Perkins has a plan that's approved that dictates what the spending will be for that particular grant. So we don't rush through and do any spend downs on those because unless we do budget amendments, we have to spend per the grant, original grant application.
My concern isn't that we're rushing to spend it ahead, is that at the end we'll have it left and we do a big spend down. For example, we'll go the Title III Part A, limited English proficiency, 11.9% spent as of now, needs to be spent down in September, needs to be spent out in September. I don't need to have an answer to each one. It's just a concern that I have that perhaps maybe I need to meet with you separately. But I don't want to see us come down to the time. I think we all remember an unfortunate thing that happened a few years ago, and I don't want to see that happen again.
And to your
Which is why I asked for this report, and I appreciate the fact that you're sharing it with us.
Right, we started in terms of the challenge several years ago. The previous board asked us to start doing the quarterly grants report, and so we have maintained that during my tenure here. And we share the concern of not having any repeats of that. And I can say, as we showed and as was evident through our audit recently, that we do spend according to spending plans, and we don't go into this idea of just burning money to say we've spent it. When we have a plan, we implement it, and we've not had a situation since I've been here that required us to have to go back and deal with unexpended funds in any large amounts.
I actually had that same question, so I'm glad you asked that. Ms. Smith?
Yeah. What happens when we exceed a grant allocation?
You mean, there are times when there may be some expenditures that are not allowable by that grant. So in essence, you don't exceed it, it's just that you cannot claim the expense, and then that expense will have to be moved usually to the operating budget in the same area. So if a school overspends their grant by, spends something that's not allowable, then it will be charged against that school's operating budget, because we have to cover the expense because it's an obligation of the district. But typically, they should not overspend because we align the budget with the award. And as long as there is money in the account or budget in the account, you cannot do a purchase order against it. It won't allow it. But then we do have credit card purchases, so we monitor that very closely to make sure that they do not overspend because of credit card purchases.
Are there any other questions? Can I have a motion on the floor to approve the quarterly grants? Oh, no, we don't need to
It's
vote
just
on
a
this?
report of
Okay.
information.
Okay. So we're going to transition over to matters of the board, and I'd like to give the first comments to Mr. Jalen Mitchell.
All right, good evening. Over the past few months, we've been discussing start time changes within Norfolk Public Schools. Well, I thought it was time to share what the students feel and believe. As you know, Schaefer and I have principal advisory councils at each school, and I felt it was important to share the pros and cons of making high school go later and elementary school go earlier. Our high school students state that they would love to go to school later. However, that comes with a price. Some reasons were already stated in the presentation Dr. Boone gave at last week's community dialogue. If we go later, we get out later. Yes, this means that we'll be in athletic practices in the dark, but for many households, this means that people may lose their homes as well as necessary utilities. Why is this? Sad yet real and true fact, many students provide a large amount of the income for their household. With that being said, the law states that our students aren't to work after a certain time. For our juniors and our sophomores, this is 7 o'clock p.m., meaning that they have to stop working at 7 o'clock. That is what the Commonwealth of Virginia states. Jobs will not hire students who can only work 3 hours a day, assuming that they're not involved in their school. If they are involved in their school, they would need even more time in order to work. As a student at Booker T. Washington High School, this is extremely true for my friends, peers, and other students in Norfolk Public Schools. Also, do we really feel safe putting our elementary school students in the dark? You know, many times in this season, it's dark when we wake up all the way until about 7:30-ish. And if we have elementary schools, kids who will be in school that early, then that's a concern that many students, high school, middle, and elementary school have. Also, many of my peers are responsible for picking up their younger sibling from school and taking care of them until the parents get off of work. Many times our parents are at work until 8 and 9 o'clock trying to make sure that they can rightfully provide for our families, making sure that we still have homes to live in, making sure that we have all of the necessities that we need. So as we decide next month, please take all of that into consideration. Make sure that you remember that our babies come first, that at the end of the day, we have to make sure that everything that we do is for them. Yeah, it might sound great that high school gets to go later, and that is awesome. I wish I could go to school at 9 o'clock, but that comes with some pushbacks as well. So let's just take all of that into consideration. Thank you.
Very much for sharing the voices of the students that you've encountered. We really do appreciate it, and that's a big part of your role here. That's why you're here, so we can get that information. You and Schaefer. Let's see. We've already discussed the reminders about school board members looking at our school board budget, so make sure you send some feedback on that. One item that was set to be on our agenda for the workshop, but we ended up pulling it because I wanted to make sure we had enough time to dedicate to the educational planning, was a short discussion on our advisory committees that we have. And that is still something that I have in the queue, but I want to just share with you all that I've received several applications from the chair and the administrative appointee, Ms. Richardson, of some applicants that are very interested in starting on SEAC, and I certainly don't want to delay that process. But again, as we talk about process and goals and the items that we want to set in place moving forward and best practices, I like for us to have that discussion, but I don't want it to delay us approving their applications for this committee. So I will be sending to each of you all the applications. I would like for you to review them. And Mr. Clanton and I will look with Dr. Boone and Ms. Jackson when we do agenda planning how we can fit that discussion in so we can kind of tie everything together.
There's similar situation on the GIAC.
Yes.
We've had folks apply, and one of the questions that I've raised, in hopes of having that discussion is, so we have the application that's online. I think a review of I think some of us have that it was in place a couple of years ago, and that is the only application that is out there. Number one, is that the application we currently want to use? Once it is completed, where is it going? That's the other big question that we need some clarity, and that all board members know exactly where it's going. Because I know a couple of folks have applied and have not heard or received any feedback on that, and the GIAC would like to make some decisions on that. The GIAC has its own process aligned with what the school board has asked. And they are serving in that capacity, but haven't officially been approved.
Right.
So I would like to move that up, as early as we can, to have that discussion, the full, so that we're all aware of what the process is.
Yeah, there's trying to look up the policy. I think it's Baker Charlie Foxtrot BCF that deals with the appointments for advisory committees. And I think we modified, or we may have been in the process of modifying the policy and the regulations that would allow for appointments any time of the year, and also worked with that alignment. So I would just ask if you would, when you send out the resumes, just share with the board also the policy and the regulation. And if there are any changes that need to be made, then we can, act accordingly, providing the opportunity to make those appointments.
Martin.
I just want to say, as the liaison to the Special Education Advisory Committee, that there has been a lot of discussion about applications, and it was the assumption of that committee that we were only allowed to gather applications once a year, and then they had to go through the board before they could accept them, whereas I think that definitely needs to be clarified. We need to be accepting applications year-round in order to maintain the momentum of the work, the very important work that these committees, these volunteers, are doing for our schools and our children. And also, they, like with these in particular, the Special Education Advisory Committee, the leaders of the organization feel strongly that these are good candidates, so review them, but please take into consideration that they have been vetted and pushed up to our level for consideration, and so I think that it should be easy to accept those.
And in review of the policy and in review of the fact that they have been vetted, I would just ask the board to please allow a possible acceptance if we do choose to approve the candidates at a non-business meeting, just for this exception, just to allow us to do that, should that be our consensus and recommendation. So more to come with regard to the advisory committees. Ms. Jackson, if you could, with Mr. Butts, pull that policy and have it sent out to the board, and I'll make sure that we get the applications sent out to the board as well. Another note, so we will be meeting next Wednesday, January 30th, for a discussion on the evaluation process of our superintendent. This is a process that I'd like for the entire board to be participating in with Dr. Boone. We've had some small discussion about this already, and we look forward to continuing that. So from 4 to 6, that is the time that we will be meeting. Okay, those were the items that I wanted to make sure I covered with everybody. Anyone else have anything else with regards to matters of the board?
Yes. Sorry, someone else.
I'll give it seniority. Go ahead.
Finally, you acknowledge
this time.
3-minute limit.
Okay, I can get you done in 3. Number 1, I did pull up the advisory committee policy, the one that's on board docs. There's a paragraph under section B we could strike, and then do that, and then easily vote on the recommendations. The item I wanted to address, I shared with the board a model out of Virginia Beach dealing with how they have developed a cooperative agreement with the city council dealing with legal services, how it's provided some policies related to the role of legal counsel. I like to be able to bring that matter to the board for discussion. If it's appropriate to have it done at the February work session, I'd like to do that. If it's the will that it come for a resolution or some other option outside of going to the work session first, just like I had the opportunity to have some time to bring that forward to the board for discussion, and would appreciate if we could possibly do that in February so that it could align with the budget discussion.
Okay, cool. So,
2 minutes. All right, go ahead.
Madam Chair, as we tonight, I think I brought it up a couple times about Booker T. Washington High School, and I know that we've received, I know that I think both of us got a letter from the concerned citizens, and particularly about their evening celebration event, and of course they've extended an invitation to us at this particular point. I would really hope that all of my colleagues would really attempt to try to be out there on February 23rd to support this event. But more overly, I'd like for us to be able to find a way from the school division or from this board for which we can support this activity beyond just our active participation in showing up. So I'd like to ask if we could possibly at this particular point direct to the superintendent to figure out what that might potentially be in supporting this, and I raise this up, as you all know, I'm a proud Commodore, and I was at Maury High School for its 100, and I know that this school division and this school board supported Maury High School in its 100, and we've had a couple other schools that's had 100s, and so this is 102. And I don't recall an official 100 for Booker T. Washington High School, so in light of us being a little bit late, I think that we be able to demonstrate to this historic, I know Jalen's sitting over there, you know, for all the bookers that are around. Right. But I think that we should do something, and so I don't want to restrain or say what that should be, but I'd like to leave it to the superintendent to see how we can kind of work that out to be able to do something.
Madam Chair, certainly, we will look into that. There have been specific requests made. We have been doing the research to find out what level of support the district has done for other schools, and right now, Maury High School is the only school that we found any financial support in terms of their 100th. We weren't aware that when Taylor had its 100th last year, so the district, other than advertising and website and things, did not provide any financial support for that. We will certainly look, and I can provide some dollar amounts associated with the requests that they've made, so that the board can have an idea potentially how we get there. I'm not sure of the source, but you know, certainly we will put a figure to the requests that have been made, and share that with the board.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Any other comments, matters of the board? Normally, we would adjourn our meeting at this time. However, we are going to go back into closed session to tie up an item that we didn't get a chance to get to. So before I officially adjourn our meeting, I would like to have a motion to return to closed session.
I'll make a motion to return to closed session.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Ms. Jackson?
Move that members of the school board go into a closed session for the purposes which are set out in subsection A of section 2.2-3711 of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act as amended for consultation with legal counsel and briefings by staff members, consultants, or attorneys pertaining to actual or probable litigation or other specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice by counsel pursuant to subsection 7 and 8 of the above cited code section. The subject of this section of the motion concerns the advice of counsel regarding legal issues related to the personnel and student support actions identified above, and the unauthorized use of the school board Twitter account. Ms. Basine?
Aye.
Ms. Campson?
Aye.
Mr. Clanton?
Aye.
Ms. Smith?
Aye.
Ms. Martin?
Aye.
Mr. Jordan?
Aye.
Dr. Gabrielle?
Aye. Thank you.
Thank
The
you.
motion is passed and we are adjourned.